draft pick. It speaks a lot to Morant's character. You won't really find anyone say a bad thing about him. Really humble. Came up through, and his dad has been so consistent in getting him to this point. I want to point out one more thing. When I spoke with his father just a few weeks ago, they would have these training sessions, these basketball pickup sessions in their backyard, and it was a communal event. And it is really so much of why Ja Morant turned into the player we see today. So much sweat, so much of that behind the scenes, a real community feel in a small town in South Carolina. This is great. I think he is a perfect culture fit, GP, by the way, for Memphis. I think this is the absolute best possible situation, passing the torch from Conley, an absolute franchise legend, right, to Ja. I think he's going to be able to handle that.
Well, to that point, sometimes, and Memphis is my home, so I love it dearly, but it's also a small market and not the most attractive NBA destination. And sometimes when you're picking near the top of a draft, you can be worried, does somebody really want to come to Memphis? Ja Morant's a Southern kid just like I'm a Southern kid. His big market was Murray, Kentucky. Memphis is going to be the most glamorous place he's ever lived, so it should not be an issue.
First player to average 20 points per game and 10 assists per game. Let's go out to Evan Daniels at Barclays Center. And Evan, a lot of what you do is recruiting, rankings with 24/7 Sports, evaluating players. Why wasn't Ja Morant so heavily recruited in high school?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, we never saw him, or if we did, we didn't remember it. He also hit a growth spurt. It's one of the coolest stories in this draft, and there's actually some really cool ones. Jackson Hayes has a cool one. Zion Williamson has a cool one. But Ja Morant, the way he was found by then Murray State assistant James Cain, he was at a random AAU tournament. James Cain goes to get some popcorn, and he stops and he sees this lanky kid jumping up and throwing down crazy dunks in the layup lines. And ends up being Ja Morant. He sits down, watches him play. The next day he brings his boss in, Matt McMahon. They offer him a scholarship and end up recruiting him to Murray State. I actually spoke to James Cain yesterday about Ja Morant and where he's improved from high school to now. And he said the first thing is he's grown 2 to 3 inches. He said he even saw him a couple weeks ago and thinks he's grown another one. But he said the other thing is his mental toughness. He showed up on campus. He became mentally tough. He put in a lot of time and effort. He said he's always had the athleticism. He's always had the skill set, and unfortunately I didn't get a chance to evaluate him, but he certainly flew under the radar, and I would have loved to have seen him in high school. He's an exciting player, and I think that they made the right pick here. Tremendous sophomore season, over 24 points a game, 10 assists. I love his playmaking off the bounce. I think he's the best passer in this draft. He's a playmaker off the live dribble. His vision, his ability to whip passes with both hands is tremendous. And obviously, there are a couple areas for improvement. You want him to be a little bit better shooter, which he did improve from his freshman to sophomore season. And you'd like to see him cut down on some of those turnovers. But this kid's a tremendous talent. He's got the athleticism. He's got the playmaking. He's got the facilitating. I think this is a really good pick.
Avery Johnson, you played against Ja Morant at Alabama. You saw him up close and personal. What did you see from this kid when you played against him?
Well, for a kid that was, a right-hander, this was the best left-handed passing kid. His left hand is better than most kids' strong hand, and he was just a kid that can go left and right, pass with both hands. A lot of times when he made a great pass during the game, he looked over at our bench, and I didn't know whether he was trying to taunt our bench, but later on at a foundation event for pediatric cancer, when we ended up at the same event, he said, "Coach, I was just trying to impress you because I know how much you love assists. You averaged 13.3 assists in your senior year at Southern University." He said, "I was trying to catch you, Coach, but I couldn't quite catch you. But I know you're somebody, Coach, that loves to celebrate the gift of passing." And I was very impressed with his ability not only score the basketball, his athleticism, his leadership, but his passing ability.
Ja Morant, second overall to the Memphis Grizzlies. With the third overall pick, the New York Knicks select R.J. Barrett out of Duke. Good pick for the Knicks. You like this pick? What's your grade?
I do like the pick. I'll give it an A because I'm going to keep this simple. I know I'm AAA so far on picks 1, 2, 3, but when you make the pick that you're supposed to make, the pick that I think is the only sensible option, then I don't know how to give a grade other than an A. R.J. Barrett is the third best prospect in this draft and arguably the second best prospect in this draft, although, yes, I would go Morant over Barrett. But certainly, I think quite clearly the third best prospect in this draft and an obvious pick for New York. On lottery night, that fan base was fired up. They thought they were going to have the opportunity to draft Zion Williamson. It didn't happen. But given where they are, R.J. Barrett is who they're getting. And here's what he represents. Somebody who this time a year ago was projected by everybody to be the #1 pick on this night, who was widely considered for years to be the best prospect his age in the world. And then I know he went to Duke, teamed up with Zion Williamson, and Zion was Zion and RJ was not. RJ was still a first-team All-American. Still scored more points as a freshman in the ACC than anybody in history. The idea that he wasn't great at Duke is crazy. He wasn't efficient, but he was great. This is the right pick.
He was great. Love the pick. Would go with an A with you. He's going to be the Rookie of the Year a year from now. Zion Williamson.
R.J. Barrett's going to be Rookie of the Year.
Zion Williamson's the better prospect. He's the correct #1 pick. R.J. Barrett's going to have the ball in his hands more. He's going to score more. The Knicks are going to rely on him more. I think his natural output, he is going to be the Rookie of the Year in the 2019-2020 NBA season.
Wow. I'd like to see the odds on the Rookie of the Year, because I think R.J. Barrett, there'd be some value there, because I think everybody in terms of the public would be running to put it on Zion Williamson. Reed, let me bring you in here now on R.J. Barrett going 3rd overall to the Knicks. Your reaction?
I like him. I like him. I don't love him. People loved him a year ago, and like Gary said, he wasn't exposed at Duke. He had a great season at Duke, and yet people kind of soured on him because of that tunnel vision that I spoke about earlier, because of the lack of excellent three-point shooting. But what he is he is a born scorer. This guy can straight up get to the hoop. He can score all over the court. Part of me would think that someone like Darius Garland could have gotten in the mix here. I tend to think the idea of this being a 3-player draft isn't quite right. But R.J. Barrett is the obvious pick here. The Knicks don't need to overthink it like they usually do.
Ranked first in the 2018 recruiting class by 24/7 Sports, and Evan Daniels helps put those projections together. Evan, you like this pick, and do you agree with Matt in terms of, hey, he might be Rookie of the Year next year?
I actually do agree. I think there's certainly a case to be made. I think R.J. Barrett may even be the most NBA-ready player in this draft. Look, he's extremely productive, was extremely productive during his college basketball season. Nearly 23 points a game, more than 7 rebounds, more than 4 assists. I love his alpha dog mentality. He knows how to score. He has a killer instinct. There's obviously some areas he's going to need to improve. He's going to need to become a better shooter. I think he could take care of the ball a little better, but he's versatile. You can put the ball in his hands. He's a good playmaker. He's a good passer when he wants to be, but this kid is just always aggressive, always attacking. I think it's the right pick. I spoke to his trainer, Drew Hanlon, during the pre-draft process, and they really spent a lot of time working on his shooting. They even adjusted some of his shooting mechanics. They changed his footing a little. They moved to the right hand on the basketball a little. So they really focused on long-range shooting, mid-range shooting, and really getting a little more shiftier and getting defenders moving side to side. But like I said, I think he's NBA ready, and I think this is a kid that's going to be able to insert into a NBA lineup and score 12 to 15 points a game.
Top 3 picks have gone as expected: Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, and R.J. Barrett. Our live coverage continues here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep. There it is. The #1 overall pick, New Orleans Pelicans, taking that kid, Zion Williamson, who's going to grow into an absolute beast. Perhaps he will change that franchise and get them back into the playoffs. But right now, the big question is who's going #4. We're going to find out coming up. You're watching CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep. Keep it locked.
Jumps up from 3. Give it to him. Gets inside, all the way to the hoop. He's bumped. Count it! And a chance for 3. The lob off the backboard to Barrett to throw it
down. It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. so Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
My body is truly powerful.
I have the power to lower my blood sugar and A1C.
Because I can still make my own insulin, and Trulicity activates my body to release it, like it's supposed to. Trulicity is for people with type 2 diabetes. It's not insulin. I take it once a week. It starts acting in my body from the first dose.
Trulicity isn't for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Don't take Trulicity if you're allergic to it, you or your family have medullary thyroid cancer, or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have an allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, or severe stomach pain. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases low blood sugar risk. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, belly pain, and decreased appetite, which lead to dehydration and may worsen kidney problems.
I have it within me to lower my A1C.
Ask your doctor about Trulicity.
Back here on our NBA draft coverage presented by Jeep. The top 3 picks have gone as expected. Number 1 overall, Zion Williamson to the New Orleans Pelicans, followed by Ja Morant to the Memphis Grizzlies. Big shoes to fill. Conley's gone. They traded him away. So he's going to have to be the new face of the franchise. And 3rd overall pick, the New York Knicks select that kid, R.J. Barrett. Matt Norlander says he's going to be the Rookie of the Year next season. As for the 4th overall pick, it has changed hands multiple times, from the Lakers to the Pelicans to now the Atlanta Hawks. DeAndre Hunter is the 4th overall pick. We told you that earlier in the day here on Sportsline. Our experts projected it happen. He's wearing a Lakers hat right now, but he's not going to be finishing with a Lakers hat or a Lakers uniform.
It seems like we can work around.
What are we doing here?
Right. What are we doing?
This is like the Oakland Raiders still playing on a baseball field in the year 2019. Why are we making players put on hats of franchises that they're clearly not going to?
It's awkward, and then you have to go back and it's like, hey, we got to edit that hat out because we need a Hawks hat and not a Lakers hat.
If you can't let him put on a Hawks hat, let's just not wear hats.
Correct. I agree with you. I'm surprised we haven't gotten to a hologram situation at this point. You know, why can't that happen? But hey, listen, tremendous pick. This, to me, clearly the 4th best prospect in this field right now. Best defensive player, I think, in the draft. Strong wing, can shoot from deep. The only question with DeAndre Hunter is this. The thing that has dogged him, if you will, is that does he have enough dog in him? Does he have enough work ethic? Does he want enough? Because there have been plenty of instances over the past 2 seasons where he just hasn't shown enough to impress scouts in games to consistently go after it the way Jarrett Culver does not have those questions. I think he overcomes all that. I love DeAndre Hunter at the 4 spot here. I think he sets up really well to be a nice rotation player going forward, and I'm going to strongly resist. You might hear this elsewhere. He is not the next coming or the next iteration of a Kawhi Leonard. Does he have some of those facets? Yes. Can he be an elite level NBA defender? Yeah, he can grow into that, but let's let these players develop a little bit. We can say he has some of those attributes, but do not expect DeAndre Hunter to step into an NBA arena in a Hawks uniform and be a top 10, top 20 defender in the NBA. He will not be that in his rookie year.
What you expect him to be in his rookie year is somebody who can guard multiple positions for you and give you whatever on the offensive end and be a real threat from the three-point line. But just like any of these guys, with the rare exception, maybe Zion Williamson, maybe R.J. Barrett, Ja Morant's going to get big minutes in Memphis, so he'll put up numbers one way or another. It takes rookies a minute, usually, and it'll take DeAndre Hunter a minute, but I never understood what the questions were. 6'8", guards multiple positions, National Defensive Player of the Year, shoots nearly 44% from three-point range, did it for a winning team, winning culture, wins a national championship, 27 points in the national championship game. What's the issue? I have, since my first mock draft after the college basketball season, had DeAndre Hunter as the fourth best player in this draft. It's nice to see the NBA agree, even if it took a whole bunch of mixed up mock drafts between then and now to get to this point, because some people had him going as low as 7 as recently as yesterday.
Let's bring in Avery Johnson now. And Avery, I know you're a big fan of DeAndre Hunter. What do you see in this young man?
Well, I see a guy that's tailor-made for this modern-day new NBA game. I see a kid actually, as we project him forward, as he continues to mature and develop, he could play in this NBA Finals with the Warriors in Toronto in several years, not now. But outside of Zion Williamson and Ja Morant, I wouldn't have even had a problem with the Knicks taking him at 3. I'm so high on this kid. Yes, I know the Kawhi Leonard comparisons are there, and maybe he'll evolve into something like that. But this kid has great skills, great hands. He's long. I need to see a little bit more competitive fire, because on the NBA level, you will get exposed if you're not a competitor each and every night. But I'm very high on him. I think he has a tremendous ceiling. And I think because of what they're trying to do with the Hawks in terms of changing their culture, his winning attitude and winning spirit coming off of a national championship is going to infuse a lot of positivity into that Atlanta Hawks basketball program, because that's what they're trying to do. They're not only trying to build a winning team, they're trying to build a program, and he's going to fit alongside nicely with Trae Young.
Evan Daniels is at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Evan, you've watched DeAndre Hunter develop from a freshman to now being the 4th overall pick in the NBA draft. How has he developed into an NBA-ready player?
Well, it's pretty impressive. He actually started out his collegiate career as a redshirt, and he just got better progressively every step of the way. Obviously, Tony Bennett is a tremendous defensive coach. He's known for that. He's helped develop DeAndre Hunter into arguably the best defender in this draft. I thought Avery hit the nail on the head. I think DeAndre Hunter is the perfect fit for the modern NBA because of the 3-and-D qualities. We know about the defense, his lateral quickness. He can guard 3s and 4s at the NBA level, which is obviously important. He's tough. He could get a little stronger, but he's pretty physical for his body. He's got good length at a 7'2" wingspan, standing 6'8", but he's really added the jump shot, and I think that's what's changed his game. His jump shot improved so much over the course of the last year, better than 43% on 105 attempts from the three-point line last year. That, in my opinion, that development, that skill improvement is among the reasons that he's going number 4 overall in the NBA draft.
Reed, you and I watched DeAndre Hunter at the Final Four. We watched him help Virginia win a national championship. What are the Hawks getting in DeAndre Hunter?
They're getting a winner, and more than that, they're getting a guy who fits in perfectly to what they can do. Look, what the Hawks are trying to do is have this system around John Collins and Trae Young. But this system so far has not been particularly good on the defensive end. What DeAndre Hunter's ceiling is that I don't think he is going to be a superstar, but he can be a 3rd or 4th option on a team that can be a true contender, and he can be the guy on the defensive end that can go out there and just make stops. And as a side note, guys, I can confirm some news that was just sent out just a little bit ago. The number 5 pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers, have selected Darius Garland, the guard from Vanderbilt. So I just got that confirmed from a source. It's an interesting pick, and I know Avery probably has some interesting thoughts about Darius Garland pairing with Colin Sexton in that backcourt.
Yeah, Avery, will have you weigh in there. Darius Garland, 5th overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They decide not to trade him, at least not for now. Darius Garland now going to be paired with your former player in Colin Sexton.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they keep this pick, because it is an interesting pick. Obviously, both of those guys can play together. They both can play on and off the ball. People forget that Darius Garland, Dad Winston Garland, played in the NBA for about 7 years. So he definitely has NBA basketball in his blood. But this is a kid that's got to prove that he can stay healthy. But playing with Colin Sexton on the floor together, a lot of speed, great ball handlers. Both guys can knock down the three-point shot. Colin became a much more efficient three-point shooter in the second half of the NBA season. This kid, Darius, is a great playmaker. But also when one guy is resting, the other guy can run the second unit. So it's going to be a great duo, especially if Cleveland holds on to this pick.
Garland, to some, they're like, who is this kid? Because we didn't get to see him. He played 5 games, unfortunately suffered a torn meniscus in late November. 6'2", 175. He's been compared to Damian Lillard with the little jitter step there. He's arguably one of the best players in the draft that we really didn't talk about coming into this draft, and here he is going 5th overall. The Cavaliers, this is a really good pick for the Cavaliers and getting Garland to team up with Sexton.
It's fascinating because I wouldn't have taken Garland in this spot. I think Jarrett Culver's the better player there. But potentially you're going to do this. If they don't ship the pick, Hakeem and Avery made good points here. Let's wait and see if this is going to wind up getting moved here before the night's over. But Garland, if he winds up being the kind of player they think that he could be, a top 5 level player, a longtime starter in the NBA, maybe you bring him in to help out Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton is still, is he a pure point guard? No. But he is an aggressive, confident personality. I'm not saying we're going to have a clash here, so to speak, but it's not the most ideal pick. I think Kobe White potentially could be an even better pro than Darius Garland, but NBA evaluators, they love falling in love with what they don't know. And Garland has a lot of promise, not a lot of tape, not a lot of evidence here. This is a little bit of a surprise for me.
This is the 5th straight pick that I've had. It matches up with my latest mock draft. So I will give it an A because you cannot draft Zion Williamson with the 5th pick. You can only draft the best available prospect with the 5th pick, and in my opinion, it was Darius Garland. And there might be a larger lesson here between Darius Garland and Romeo Langford. Darius Garland got hurt very early in the season and might have even helped himself with NBA draft people because he's a top 5 pick, and I'm not sure anybody on, say, November 1st had him projected that way. Meantime, Romeo Langford was everybody's top 10. It took a hand injury early on, continued to play through it, whereas Darius Garland shut it down, didn't shoot a good percentage, and now Romeo Langford likely to go outside of the top 10, maybe outside of the top 15. It'll be interesting to see what prospects do next year. Darius Garland just got rewarded for shutting it down after 5 games. Maybe that's the right thing to do.
Maybe it will be. We shall see. We'll see how he's received in Cleveland, or in fact, he could be traded by night's end. We've seen that before. All right, let's go back out to Barclays Center where Zion Williamson speaking live right now at the podium, the 1st overall pick in the 2019 NBA Draft.
Congratulations. What do you believe, since you're out there so much in the media, you're the #1 pick, what do you believe is the biggest misconception about you going into the league?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I think that, I get labeled. So I just get labeled. And, like, I was in a position of, like, hearing about somebody else a lot with, like, oh, this player can do this, that, and you want to see for yourself. So I think with people just trying to label me, and I don't think it's that serious because I'm just looking to play basketball and win.
Tenny Samagi, Eagle News. Congratulations. What is one attribute that the whole world should know about you?
I'm going to do anything to win. I'm just going to do anything to win.
Hey, Zion, Lloyd Carroll, the Queens Chronicle. Let's talk money. Obviously, you're now in the highest tax bracket. I know you have an agent, but let's talk about, are you going to be involved with your finances? How much have you studied about managing money, having an investment portfolio, not just depending on an agent to do this? A lot of athletes have gotten in trouble for that. And you seem like a pretty polished person. So do you read the journal every day? What's your strategy?
My strategy is, like, I'm still learning. Like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about what I need to know. And any tips, please shoot them. I like to hear all kind of advice.
Max Bonstetter, Sports Illustrated. First of all, Zion, congrats on being the 1st overall pick. You're also the first player to be born in the year 2000 to be drafted into the NBA. You're making history in many ways. How will you change the league, especially how players relate to young fans in the future?
How old are you?
I'm 15.
I respect that. I like that. Times change. Like, I think that's why there's so many debates about, like, who people think the greatest players of all time are. Like, I think if you were in the time of Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, you'll probably say one of those two. Or if you're in the time in Jordan, you'll probably say Jordan. In our generation, a lot of them say LeBron. So times change, and younger fans will like younger players.
Zion in the back. Rick Leventhal, Fox News Channel.
All right, Zion Williamson, he doesn't actually have to worry about managing his money. There are people for that. He can hire them, and they can manage his money for him. We don't want to see him lose any money, but I think he'll be okay. I think he'll find a good finance guy. I'm sure GP or Matt know a guy. I think they can give a name here. We're waiting right now for the Suns pick. Really, it belongs to Minnesota because they traded up at 6. We're thinking it could be a couple different guys at this point. It could be Jarrett Culver. It could be Kobe White. It's really interesting to see how this is all unfolded. And it is Jarrett Culver at 6th. At 6, he'd be going to the Minnesota Timberwolves because they made a trade with the Phoenix Suns.
What's interesting about this, and maybe we'll find this out tonight, maybe we'll find it out soon. Did Minnesota think they were getting Jarrett Culver when they made this trade less than 2 hours ago? Did they think they were going to have Garland fall to them? How strong was their intel, and are they happy with this? For all we know on their big board, they had Culver right behind Garland, and they're going to take this and run with it. I think Culver's the better prospect versus Darius Garland, but this is the one. This is the first wrinkle of what will be many tonight. We are going to have plenty of trades, but overall, I do like the pick. Tremendous work ethic. There was a report out earlier on Thursday that Jarrett Culver asked his agent to make sure tonight, after the draft is done, so Jarrett Culver is going to go take the media tour. It's an amazing moment for him and his family. At some point, 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m. tonight, Jarrett Culver wants to go find an empty gym and get in some shots and work out. Like, that's the kind of stuff, like, if Jarrett Culver...
Not the way I'd spend my draft
I know.
night.
I'm totally...
That's not the way I'm going to spend this draft night.
I'm curious, though. Do you think that's genuine, or does he want some sort of story after the draft? This is a kid that went to a gym, the lights were out, and he decided to shoot up some buckets here, and he wants to have this story, because we know the narratives now in the social media era. Because I'm sure there was a lot of guys that did that back in the day. They were like, I'm going to work right now. I'm about to get paid.
Oh, if we see video of Jarrett Culver at the club, then he's going to have some...
Right, exactly.
But do I think yeah, I think it could be genuine because of who he is, his coach, Chris Beard, Texas Tech. They were the grit and grind team of college basketball. GP can attest to that. So, interesting pick. I think he's got a really solid chance at being successful here. If he winds up staying there in Minnesota, I do like the pick.
I'll give the pick a B because I think I would have taken Kobe White, but I don't mind this at all. And I will say, to your point, I would be skeptical that he really wants to get shots up tonight if it were most prospects. But I've heard nothing but great things about Jarrett Culver. The basketball stuff's easy to see. Big 12 Player of the Year, led Texas Tech to the Final Four. I'm talking about the off-the-court stuff. We're talking about a young man who comes from a strong family, incredible student, incredible person, works hard. There's stories about him doing nothing on flights home after game, but watching film. Not trying to play cards, not trying to watch a movie, not trying to listen to music, but just study. Study the game of basketball. There are no red flags in any way with this young man, and I think he's probably the safest pick you could make at this point. Maybe not the one with the highest ceiling, certainly the safest.
Ranked 312th coming out of high school.
Which is just bananas.
Yeah. Top 6 pick. This is why this night is so amazing, guys, because you have stories like this. Culver, what a turnaround.
And Avery, I know you can appreciate a guy like Jarrett Culver, who is a student of the game, and now here he is being drafted 6th overall. He will eventually go to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, and his hard work is paying off. I've been in a lot of these draft rooms, both when I was coaching the Mavericks and the Nets. And it's not only about getting the best player available based on your evaluation, games you've watched, the scouts have attended a lot of practices, talked to coaches, all of the analytics. It's also sometimes about sending a message to guys on your team. And Andrew Wiggins has been an inconsistent player for the Timberwolves. Hasn't always been a guy that you can depend on night in and night out. So this is also about trying to strengthen that position and trying to light a fire under a guy that's already on your roster, that if you're not bringing it, we got another young guy in the pipeline that can come out and potentially with time do the job even better than you. So they have a lot invested in Wiggins, but now with this move with Culver, I think this was a solid move. I agree, probably Kobe White was a little bit more of a need, because when guys like Jeff Teague is your starter and not your reserve, maybe you're not as good. But I think this is also sending a message to Wiggins.
Evan, how about Jarrett Culver now going to be teamed up with a Kentucky guy, a guy you know very well, and Karl Anthony Towns?
Yeah, I think this is a good pick for Minnesota. One thing that I like about this kid is he's a late bloomer. I remember back to my first evaluation of him. It was the spring of his final summer on the AAU circuit. He played for this team, Nike Pro Skills, and I remember watching him, and I wrote down on my notes, I went back and pulled him up, and I just wrote very intriguing. Now, he wasn't productive, and I even remember seeing him at Peach Jam, one of the biggest AAU tournaments, and he wasn't productive in that game. He only scored 13 points, but he was gangly, he was long, he was athletic, and every step of the way, Jarrett Culver has gotten better. You know, Gary Parrish just mentioned about his work ethic and watching tape. Well, that doesn't surprise me. This kid is a late bloomer. He's continued to progress, and I think he brings a lot on both ends of the floor. He's 6'6". He's got a 6'9" wingspan. He's athletic. I think he can guard multiple positions on the perimeter. He's certainly been taught tremendous defensive mechanics from Chris Beard. Just 30% from three this past season, but was 38% from three during his freshman year. So I think there's a potential as a shooter. I think he's a playmaker off the bounce. He works out pretty well in the mid post as well. So he's certainly going to need to get stronger and develop consistency with that long range jump shot. But I love the direction that he's headed as a prospect, and he's continuously gotten better. And I just love those late bloomers.
Reed, you're a Minnesota guy. You like this pick for the Timberwolves and Jarrett Culver?
Look, this is a nice pick, but the Timberwolves did not get the guy that they wanted. There were reports earlier today that they were trying to move up to get the number 4 pick. They were trying to move up to get that number 5 pick from the Suns. From the Cavs. What they did instead is they moved up to get the number 6 pick. And what my sources tell me is that they really wanted Darius Garland, and they believed that he would fall to them with Hunter going at number 4. And the thought was that the Cavs would not take another score first point guard at number 5, pairing Garland with Colin Sexton. Well, the Cavs did that. Now what the Wolves get, they get everything that has just been mentioned. They get a high character guy, a hard worker, a guy who comes from an absolutely fantastic family, a guy whose brother might be a high jumper in the 2020 Olympics. There's great athleticism in this family. He's a jack of all trades, but a master of none, the type of guy you want in a locker room. You could say nothing but good things about Jarrett Culver, except he's not the guy that ultimately the Wolves wanted in this draft.
With the 7th overall pick, the Chicago Bulls selected that kid, Kobe White, the freshman out of North Carolina. He's joining the Chicago Bulls, and this is pretty interesting. He scored more points as a freshman than Michael Jordan did during his freshman campaign in North Carolina. We'll break down this pick on the other side. You're watching CBS Sports HQ, draft coverage presented by Jeep.
It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
Ours is a proud bloodline. We hail from the battlefields to the Badlands, from the mountains and the midtowns, from the islands to the highlands, and directly to those who understand that when you get behind the wheel, you're not just driving a Jeep Wrangler, you're joining a family.
Everybody loves
Back here on our NBA draft preview show, NBA draft show presented by Lander and a cast of many at Barclays Center. Also Avery Johnson here and Reed Forgrave on the way. With the 7th overall pick here, the Chicago Bulls selected Kobe White, the freshman out of North Carolina. Your grade is what for this pick?
And A, he was the best player available. I thought he should have probably gone one spot higher. So if he's available to Chicago, he makes a lot of sense. This is a young man nobody projected as a one-and-done player. When he came out of high school, he was considered a 6'4", 6'5" combo guard, big-time scorer, but combo guard who was going to need multiple years of college. But Roy Williams, to his credit, and perhaps this is why he's a Hall of Famer, put the ball in Kobe White's hands pretty much from the jump and allowed him to show he's not just a combo guard. He can be a primary ball handler, and made him a point guard with size. And point guards with size who can really push pace and score, oh, well, they end up lottery picks.
Kobe White was probably the most entertaining non-Zion player to watch in college basketball last season. Got a chance to sit down with him, with Roy Williams. He's got an inspiring story. Lost his father to cancer before he even got to North Carolina. Roy Williams entrusted more with Kobe White than he did with most guards over the years. Roy also told me he was the second fastest point guard he ever had, only behind Ty Lawson there. And he was given even more of a green light than Roy Williams was expecting to. But this was my pick to the Bulls from the start for the past few months. I think this is a really, really good fit. Good combo guard, good size. You stand next to Kobe White, he is big. He's got legitimate NBA size. I think he'll prove to be an effective player immediately. I agree with GP in terms of who was available right here. I give it an 8. And just for the record here, 1 through 7. These were the 7.
100%.
These were the 7, and now it's about to get interesting.
Basically everybody had these 7 players going 1 through 7 in some order. We could argue Culver over Hunter or White over Garland, but it was these 7 players supposed to go 1 through 7 in some order. This, I think, is really where the draft starts.
And Kobe White wears pink sneakers in honor of his father. Avery Johnson, I know you like this point guard in Kobe White, and now he's headed to the Chicago Bulls. How about this pick for Chicago?
Love this pick for Chicago. This is a bigger version of Derrick Rose. Kobe has great size. It has the speed of a guy in the past that not a lot of people might remember, Kevin Johnson from the Phoenix Suns, a guy who was really fast with the basketball. So combine Kevin Johnson type speed, Derrick Rose type of physicality. This is a great pick for the Chicago Bulls. And the Bulls, they need some help in the backcourt. I know Chris Dunn is there, but there's a need to provide legitimate starting point guard help for the Chicago Bulls, and I think this is going to help them hit the reset button.
Reed Forgrave, you heard Avery Johnson there mention Kevin Johnson. I remember Kevin Johnson. I watched him play, but I also used him in NBA Jam with Charles Barkley, and I dominated against the computer, of course. I wasn't playing a bunch of people or whatever. But you like the comp here, Kobe White in the pick?
Yeah, I mean, I like the pick. I think of Kevin Johnson as the mayor of Sacramento, so maybe I'm just a weirdo. Pay attention to too much politics. I'm not in love with Kobe White as much as a lot of people, but I certainly see where that love comes from. I mean, he is a scoring point guard. He was electric, like Matt Norlander said. So much fun to watch when he was at UNC. I do have concerns about the size. Like, some people are 6'5" and play like they're 6'8". Some people are 6'5" and play like they're 6'2". And I think Kobe White might be the latter, that he plays a little bit shorter because he has somewhat short arms and just his style of play. He has a low release point. But the Bulls, they got an electric player and they needed a point guard, so this absolutely fills a need.
All right, with the 8th overall pick, which belongs now to the New Orleans Pelicans, they traded with the Atlanta Hawks. They take Jackson Hayes, so back-to-back freshman here. Jackson Hayes, Big 12 Rookie of the Year. Evan, let me come to you here. Jackson Hayes, what do we know about this guy?
Dude, what an amazing rise for Jackson Hayes out of Cincinnati. Didn't have a high major scholarship offer until the final July of his final AAU summer. Didn't even start as a junior in high school for his high school team. Pretty remarkable. Grew 4 inches from his beginning of his junior year till he stepped foot on Texas. 6 foot Texas's campus, 6'11", over a 7'3" wingspan. Obviously a late bloomer based on what I just said, but I think he has all kinds of impressive physical attributes. He's a very good athlete. He's quick off his feet. He's mobile. This is a guy that the best days are ahead. I think he's going to be a good shot blocker. He's arguably the best shot blocker in this class. More than 2 block shots a game. During his freshman season at Texas. From talking to NBA executives earlier today, there was a number that were salivating over him and really trying to move up in this draft to get him. He's far from a finished product. There's areas that he needs to get better at in terms of scoring, and I'd like to see him focus on rebounding a little more, just 5 rebounds a game. But he's efficient when he gets opportunities. He's a good fit for the NBA because of the rim running, the lob catching, and the rim protection. So I think Jackson Hayes, what an amazing story, amazing rise. And an NBA team is getting a kid that's in the process of getting better, and he's far from a finished product.
This Pelicans team is going to be very large. I mean, Jahlil Okafor, Zion Williamson, and now Jackson Hayes. Weigh in here on Jackson Hayes going to the Pelicans.
Okay, so there was buzz about Jackson Hayes the entire day. I had a couple sources tell me earlier in the day that teams like San Antonio, Boston were potentially trying to move up to get him. I think this pick is indicative of a few things. One, the buzz, he was not going to drop below 10. New Orleans knew what it was doing. Had a source reach out a few minutes ago and says New Orleans bumping back to 8. I have to figure that they're going to be going with Hayes here. That winds up being the case. What's intriguing about it is, yes, super athletic. They've got a lot of length here, but I wonder what Zion Williamson is surrounded with in terms of offensive playmakers. Jackson Hayes could wind up being a Jaren Jackson Jr. type. I think that's what New Orleans is hoping and banking on here because he's got a similar physical profile overall. I don't disagree with the pick. I've had Jackson Hayes at number 8 in my mock draft for a couple of weeks now. I think that he falls right there in terms of top 8 upside prospects. New Orleans taking a little bit of a gamble, but if he hits in a big way, make no mistake, a lot of scouts think that his talent ceiling is top 5 in this draft.
You like this as much as Matt?
Not as much as Matt. I don't mind it, but, Jaren Jackson Jr. showed his ability at Michigan State to shoot the ball from the perimeter. He shot a nice percentage from three-point range. Do you happen to know Jackson Hayes' three-point percentage in this 1 year at Texas?
Give it to me at 16%, GP.
0.0. 0.0. So maybe
not good.
He didn't take a shot.
So maybe
there is an element of mystery here that I cannot wait to unfold next season.
So maybe it's possible he'll someday do something he's never done, but he hasn't done it to date. I don't love this. I would give it a C. I think if you are building around Zion Williamson, it's important to have shooters all around him, all over the court. And Jackson Hayes is a lot of things. An upside play, undeniably. A rim protector, dunks everything. But I don't know that anybody, except for Matt, of course, would call him a shooter at this point. This is not what I would have done with that pick.
All right, you were handing out A's, and then we've gotten a B, and then we've gotten a C. How about the next pick here for the Washington Wizards, taking Rui Hachimura out of Gonzaga? Matt, I know you like these Gonzaga players. Rui Hachimura over Brandon Clark here in the first round at 9th overall. What do you make of this pick?
I think it's a fine pick. I think Brandon Clark is going to be a better NBA player than Rui, but that's just going Gonzaga versus Gonzaga. It's a big night for Gonzaga, by the way, these two, and then Zach Norvell Jr. expected to be picked in the latter part. Mark Few is on hand in Brooklyn. This is like the big night for this program. You never have 3 guys come out of Gonzaga in one draft. He's got a lot of offensive upside. Defensively, he's made good strides. I mean, when he got to Gonzaga, he was atrocious on the defensive end. Gotten better there. 3-point-wise, a good long-range shooter. I actually think he'll grow to an even better one. Solid athlete. Washington, their situation is, the roster situation is fascinating there. So you hope that he can click there. I don't have an issue with the pick. I would take, how about this? I would take Rui Hachimura easily, instantly, without second thought over Cam Reddish, who is now threatening. We'll see what happens here with the 10th pick of falling out of the top 10.
Well, what this, I think, highlights is what we were talking about before the 8th pick was made, which is This is where it starts to get a little bit up in the air, and there's no obvious selection, whether you're picking 8th or 9th. Like, I didn't like the Jackson Hayes pick, but it's probably as sensible as most things they could have done in that spot. I don't love this one, but what are your options? Nasir Little, Cam Reddish, P.J. Washington? Is that really much different than Rui Hachimura? So I'd give it a B. I guess I'd label it this way. Not what I would have done, but completely reasonable to do.
All right, Avery Johnson, let's bring you in. Rui Hachimura, what do you see when you watch him play?
Well, I see a guy that's obviously not a great threat from behind the three-point line. And I know this is an area where it's threes and layups. I think he's very efficient from the mid-range. He's a player that's a winner, very physical player. But I just think with John Wall's injury, the Wizards franchise is just in flux, period. I think they was just trying to go with, in their mind, the best player available. I was very surprised with the Pelicans pick. So it'll be interesting. Maybe they were trying to pull a Jared Allen, the kid 2 years ago from Texas that the Nets took with the 22nd pick that was also a shot blocker. So I was very surprised by the New Orleans pick.
Reed Forgrave, Rui Hachimura led Gonzaga in scoring this past season. He was their go-to guy in terms of production, then Brandon Clark behind him. But you know Rui Hachimura pretty well. You wrote a piece on him. What do we need to know about Rui Hachimura? How does he translate to the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, remember, the Wizards made this pick without having an actual general manager to make that pick, which adds intrigue to this situation. But what Rui is, he's a hell of an athlete, a big body, a versatile player. He has a good touch around the rim, and he's a really, really hard worker. This is a young man who grew up in Japan, the first Japan-born player to ever be selected in the first round of the NBA draft. He will be playing for the Japanese team at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Do not underestimate the pull of the endorsement poll of a team like the Wizards, who look like they're heading through some really rough times going forward. Now having a player in a very international city like Washington, D.C., that can be the Japanese Jeremy Lin. This is going to be huge for the Wizards marketing arm. As far as a player, look, he started playing basketball at age 13. He's still somewhat raw, but I do think that means that Rui Hachimura just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think will end up being a solid NBA 4.
Matt, Rui Hachimura going before Brandon Clark. I know you touched on it a little bit here. Where do you see Brandon Clark then falling to?
I mean, I was told Brandon Clark could have been involved as high as number 8 and could fall as low as 18 or 19 here. So that's a possibility. Brandon Clark has a couple things going against him. Doesn't measure well, is old. You know, he started his career at San Jose State, but to me, he's a terrific athlete. I think Brandon Clark will be the better NBA player of the two here. Don't have an issue. Rui seems a little bit high overall, guys, just a little bit here. Reed's point about no general manager is also, I mean, if that does not work, I mean, Washington, that Wizards franchise and that fan base, I know they're going through it a little bit here. That could be fascinating to look back down the road. We wait and see on Brandon Clark. I maintain the belief, though, that wherever he goes, it's going to wind up being 2, 3, 4 spots too low.
All right, the first 9 picks are in. We wait for the 10th overall pick. Will it be Cam Reddish? Perhaps it'll be another guy, maybe an international player, the first international player to be taken in the 2019 NBA draft. We'll find out as our coverage of the NBA draft continues here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep.
Lobs it up for Reddish from the right for the win. Goal! He got it, the buzzer! And the Blue Devils win it!
Ours is a proud bloodline. We hail from the battlefields to the Badlands, from the mountains and the midtowns, from the islands to the highlands, and directly to those who understand that when you get behind the wheel, you're not just driving a Jeep Wrangler, you're joining a family.
Why spec harder rubber on city trucks? That's why. We know the exact equipment that'll fit your exact needs, keeping your profits out of the hole. That's how we deliver confidence. Penske.
It's tough to quit smoking, cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
I see what's possible instead of what's here. Others see cracked concrete, run-down courts. I see a way to bring pride back to communities. That's why I made Project Backboard and a site with GoDaddy. How will you make your mark? Make the world you want.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, our NBA draft coverage is presented by Jeep, and we are 10 picks in to the 2019 NBA draft. And with the 10th overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks selecting Cam Reddish. They got that pick in the Luka Doncic, Trae Young trade from last year. You'd have to think that the Hawks are going to sit still here with Cam Reddish, and they pair him up with DeAndre Hunter. Cam Reddish in the top 10. There was talk about him perhaps sneaking in the top 5. Well, here he is, top 10 pick going to the Atlanta Hawks.
We talk about John Morant, unranked out of high school, Jarrett Culver, 312th, and what they did to overcome. Cam Reddish is evidence that if you are highly viewed as a 17-year-old and you play 1 year in college and you play particularly at a high-profile school, the chances of you maintaining that status are pretty good. Cam Reddish didn't do anything at Duke, in my opinion, to establish and validate himself as a top 10 pick or not even a top 15 pick. Shot 33% from 3, 39% from 2, had an offensive rating of 96. That's well below par there. Nevertheless, Atlanta thinks that he's going to sidle up nicely with Kevin Huerter, Trae Young, and hope that he can develop into something. I don't discount the possibility for Cam Reddish to grow into a very good NBA player. I would wager against it. I just have not seen it yet. It might happen. Maybe it takes Cam Reddish until he's 22 or 23 years old to bloom into the kind of player that people think that he will be. But to this point, I've always felt that he has been one of the more overhyped prospects of the past 2 or 3 years.
Let me start by saying that I leave open the opportunity, possibility that Cam Reddish could develop into something worthy of a top 10 pick, maybe even an all-star. That said, there's no way I'd take him in the top 10 for a lot of the reasons Matt just said. When you talk to people about him, well, what is he? Oh, well, he's a 6'8" wing who can really shoot it. Except he doesn't ever make them. Like, what good is it if you can shoot it a lot but don't make them? He wasn't effective inside the arc either. He pulled himself out of an NCAA tournament game that he was scheduled to start because of a knee issue that the trainers had not identified. That's a huge red flag to me. And then I mentioned this earlier tonight, but I think it's hugely important. Chris Patola, who's a college basketball analyst and friend of mine, was on radio today in North Carolina. He was asked about Cam Reddish, and he said he takes a lot of three-pointers, but why does he never make them? If he's such a good athlete, why doesn't he finish at the rim? I just don't know what he does on the court. And that might not mean anything coming from Matt or me or most people. Chris Patola is Mike Krzyzewski's son-in-law. Do you think there's any scenario where Chris is saying that unless he got that idea from Coach K himself? If that's what Mike Krzyzewski thinks of Cam Reddish, and I would assume that it is, that's a huge red flag for me. I wouldn't take him in the top 10.
Could this, though, be a product of playing in the shadow of Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett? Like, he goes out on his own, and now he's going to play alongside DeAndre Hunter, but now he's not playing under that massive shadow of Zion and R.J. Maybe he goes out and he becomes a really good basketball player in the NBA.
That's the argument in favor of him. Had he just been somewhere else, not playing next to Zion and R.J., he would have become the star that everybody thought he might be. And perhaps that's true, but listen, just look at the NBA. Kevin Durant's the star. Steph Curry's the star. Klay Thompson still gets his games every once in a while. Draymond still gets his games every once in a while. Cam Reddish didn't really do that at Duke. He was largely invisible for big portions of games and big portions of the season. Again, he is undeniably gifted, very, very young, has the ability to develop into something nice, but he was not nice in his 1 year at Duke. He wasn't that nice in his high school career. If he's going to be a star, an actual on-the-court star in basketball games in the NBA, he'll have to do something that he's never done before.
Reed, Cam Reddish to the Atlanta Hawks. Do you like this pick, or is this a reach?
I love it, especially at number 10. There are not going to be many more divisive picks during this draft than Cam Reddish going at number 10. And this is one of these picks that I'm completely on the other side of Gary and Matt. And here's why. Look, Travis Schlenk, the Atlanta Hawks GM, remember, he built the Golden State Warriors dynasty. He was a huge part of finding these guys. These guys were kind of wacky basketball players that didn't seem to quite fit. He clearly sees something in prospects that normal people like you and me don't always see. What is it that he's seeing in Cam Reddish? Well, look, he's certainly not seeing consistency during his one season at Duke, but there were definitely bursts of brilliance. Is he looking at the fact that Cam Reddish had a core problem and had underwent surgery after the season? Could that be a reason why he shot less than 40% from the 2-point range? I think that is entirely possible. When you look at Cam Reddish, this is a boom-bust prospect. I'm just much higher on the boom side of him, especially when you're picking at number 10 than most people.
Phoenix Suns traded out of the 6th spot for the 11th spot. They're on the clock right now. Matt, what do you expect the Phoenix Suns to do here at this point with the 11th overall pick?
Well, remember, when they traded out of this 6th spot, they clearly did this knowing that when they went back to where they went back, they were going to get a player that they didn't think they were going to have to compete for. They were comfortable in making this decision. They weren't over the moon about where they were at 6 and the prospects that were there, like a Hunter, a Garland, a Culver, a Kobe White, what have you there. Phoenix is fascinating because they're trying to get some sort of momentum. They've got some good young pieces there, and you hope that they can get a pick there that can do something, and they have selected Cameron Johnson. Okay, Cameron Johnson, number 11. Real quick here, Akeem.
No, you don't have to be quick. Take your time.
Okay. I had him at 18 on my mock draft, and I thought I was more ambitious than most.
Yeah.
This is one why mock drafts are incredible, and draft night is amazing because nobody had this, okay? You never really know what an organization might be thinking. Here's the Cam Johnson story for you. He grows up in Pittsburgh. A coach told me this. I swore I wouldn't out who he was because he was familiar with the Cam Johnson recruitment. He was not seen as a major conference player. He winds up going to Pitt. His dad played there, and Jamie Dixon believed in him. So one of Jamie Dixon's assistants goes and watches Cameron Johnson in a pickup game against dudes in their 30s. Jamie Dixon offers Cam Johnson a scholarship, calls his staff, says, I just offered Cam Johnson a scholarship. His assistant hangs up the phone on Jamie Dixon. He calls back, he goes, hey, did I lose you there? He goes, no, I can't believe you just actually offered Cam Johnson a scholarship. The point is, only Pittsburgh thought that he was a worthy power conference player. Jamie Dixon swore by him. He grows into the best shooter in this draft. It's an amazing story because no one saw this for a long time, but he is built to succeed. Last point. If Phoenix thinks that Cam Johnson's the guy, he's going to step in and shoot 42% from 3 for the next 6-7 years. It doesn't matter if they took him 11th, 6th, or 26th. That's their guy. They buy in on him. I promise you, if he's a successful player, no one's going to be mocking the pick because I think in the immediacy of this, people are going to be like, what are you doing taking Cam Johnson in this spot? Might prove to be a good one.
So Jamie Dixon was right.
Jamie Dixon was right before anyone else.
He lost out.
Before anyone else.
Williams benefited.
But Jamie Dixon said, I think he's good enough to play Division I basketball at the high major level. He didn't say he should be the 11th pick in the draft.
No, he did not.
Text Jamie right now. I promise you he'd be like, I don't know about this.
I don't disagree.
Let me explain why you might do this if you're Phoenix first before I explain to you why you can't do this.
Sure.
They've got young, interesting pieces. They're ready to do something. They're
are
ready to try to break through. And I think that's partly why you trade for Dario Saric, somebody who can help. And now you add an older, he's going to be a rookie, but older than a lot of NBA veterans by the time he enters the league, in Cameron Johnson, undeniably great shooter, around 45%. If you're arguing for it, make that argument. Here's the problem. Imagine if you're a Suns fan waking up this morning thinking you're picking 6th and ended up with Cameron Johnson. Like, what?
Fair,
What?
but if you tell this, he is regarded as the best pure shooter in the draft. So maybe that's not enough, but you do have someone that is considered by scouts to be the best at one thing versus any other player. That is something. I wouldn't have gone 11th, but it is at least something in their favor.
The other part of this is if you want Cameron Johnson, you can trade down further than 11 to get him, I'm certain.
Right.
Keep in mind, Cam Johnson was not one of the 24 players invited to the green room at the NBA draft. And that's important because that's not something based off of mock drafts. That's off of intel from NBA franchises. Hey guys, who do you really think is going to be the first 15 picks, first 20 picks, first 25 picks? Cam Johnson didn't get an invitation. That suggests nobody outside of Phoenix thought he needed to go anywhere close to number 11. I'll give it a D just in case he ends up being a three-point contest winner someday, but this is wild to me, not what I would have done at all.
He was the only player last season to average at least 16 points per game, shoot at least 50% from the field, and 45% from beyond the arc. Avery, when you see a player like Cameron Johnson go as high as 11, what do you make of that?
Well, not just because his last name is Johnson, but I love this pick for the Phoenix Suns. Monty Williams, my old teammate with the Spurs, I think this is a pick where they're trying to space the floor a little bit more for Devin Booker. They're not bringing in Cam Johnson to be a distributor or a lockdown defender. They're not bringing him in because of his versatility to guard 4 different positions. They're bringing him in to knock down shots and to space the floor where his numbers actually matches his production. Shooters who can't shoot, as we were talking about Cam Reddish, or guys that don't make enough shots but have a reputation that they are shooters, this guy is a maker. And he's going to make a lot of threes in the Phoenix Suns uniform. And I think with all of the moves that the Phoenix Suns are making, they have their eyes on a point guard either via free agency or via trade. Because for them to move back in the draft and to draft Cam Johnson with this pick, I think this is all a part of a greater and larger puzzle, and especially with their new coach, Monty Williams, trying to recreate the culture and bring in an older, experienced player in Cam Johnson.
Funny tweet from Zach Braziller, who works for the New York Post. He is at the NBA draft. Kobe White was just informed that his teammate Cam Johnson went number 11. Kobe White's response, "What? Wow, bro." So even Kobe White was caught off guard by this. First, Kobe White's hair caught off guard by Kobe White's hat.
I think Nasir Little caught off guard just as much.
Yeah.
His teammate at Carolina.
I imagine Nasir Little's also going, "What, bro?"
Yeah, I was supposed to be in the top 10. 3 more lottery picks left. Up next is the Charlotte Hornets, and the 12th pick in the NBA draft. The Charlotte Hornets are going with P.J. Washington out of Kentucky. We saw him a lot last season, Matt. You saw him up close and personal. P.J. Washington to the Charlotte Hornets.
You give some love to my buddy here because he has been very high. GP Gary Parrish, very high on P.J. Washington. Credit to him. He
only took till 8:52 to get some love from Matt Norton.
I'm going to be giving you love all night. Don't worry, my man. So,
whoa.
Wow, I don't know if I go that far.
So, P.J. Washington, how about this? The first time since John Calipari became coach of the Kentucky Wildcats that he has not had a top 10 NBA draft pick. Obviously, that's relatively surprising. P.J. Washington does so much, improves so much, and does so much at an NBA level already. Can shoot well, rebounds well, good athlete, got stronger, good ball distributor, works well in the post. When you tell me Cam Johnson gets drafted before P.J. Washington, I can't believe it, but we just saw it happen with our own very eyes. Good pick for the Hornets here. I like it a lot, and I think that he will succeed, and this will prove to be a nice pick.
I like the pick. I'll give it a grade of a B. This is a young man who probably could have entered the 2018 NBA draft and been a borderline first-round pick, but he decided to come back to school and, yes, help Kentucky compete for a national championship, but also, what does every player say, improve their stock. Most don't do it. P.J. Washington did. He went from somebody who shot the three-point ball at about a 26% rate to shooting above 40% as a sophomore. What does that tell NBA people? That he can be a space-creating forward in the modern NBA. That's what they're looking for. It's not enough to just be 6'8", 6'9", skilled anymore. Can you be 6'8", 6'9", sit in the corner and make a shot? He can, and that's why he's a lottery pick.
I give you a grade A pick because your prop hit. You had P.J. Washington as the first Kentucky player being drafted. So there you go, GP.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So if you watched this earlier on Sportsline, your ticket cash. That's what we do here for you. Help you win some money. We put that knowledge in your mind and money in your pocket. Let's go back out to Evan Daniels. You follow Kentucky exclusively. P.J. Washington led the Wildcats in scoring and rebounding. Do you like this pick here at 12th overall for the Charlotte Hornets?
Well, I actually had him a little lower on my big board. I had him more in the 20s. But I do think that he's a talented kid, and I thought Gary made a good point. This is a kid that has really progressed over the last year. He really used that second season at Kentucky to get better. He's a tad undersized at the power forward spot at 6'7", but he's very long, has a 7'2" wingspan. You like his motor, you like his energy, you like that he goes to the glass and really rebounds, but the jump shot improving was the most notable thing from his sophomore season. He turned into a real threat to not only make jump shots from mid-range, but to the three-point line at the collegiate level. So when you factor that in with his motor and his rebounding, I get it. He's got good hands. He's got good touch around the basket. Potentially the size for position is a little bit of a concern. The length helps with that a little. But I do think that he brings some value in terms of rebounding. That's one of the things that I think translates at every level, and he's a very good rebounder and a guy that I think with the addition of the jump shot is a solid basketball player.
Avery, when you take a look at a guy like P.J. Washington, who does he remind you of, perhaps past or present, that played in the league?
Well, I think he's a poor man, Pascal Siakam. I've been watching this kid for 6 years. He went to high school and played for his dad in Las Vegas. He played AAU for Penny Hardaway's team, and I watched him for 2 years and competed against him when he played for Kentucky. And I actually was one of the ones that voted for him to leave after his freshman year and not return to Kentucky for his second season. This kid is tough. He's a coach's dream. He's very coachable. He really loves to impact the game with his rebounding, both his offensive and defensive rebounding. But here's a kid that came back for his sophomore season, and he improved his game. He moved his range back from the long two range to behind the three-point line, made a lot of big threes this year for Kentucky. He can play. He is an NBA 4. You can slide him over maybe a little bit with low minutes to the three position. But again, just versatility, toughness. He always believes he's the best player on the floor. And it also speaks to player development and understanding when is the right time to declare and stay in the draft and when is the right time to go back to college and try to improve. And he's a picture perfect example for player development and going back to college for your sophomore season and giving yourself a better chance to get drafted higher than the 20s.
Matt, now you've got a little Kentucky love here with the Charlotte Hornets. Malik Monk, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and now P.J. Washington, Wildcat Central there in Charlotte.
Yeah, no Carolina Blue, Big Blue Nation for Michael Jordan and the Hornets there. Listen, P.J. Washington, I think, can step in and he can be a serviceable, really good pro. Where Charlotte was here with the team need, I'm a big fan of it. P.J. Washington, Ja Morant were the two players who most benefited by coming back. Ja Morant, would he have been drafted a year ago? Probably not. Maybe a late second rounder. P.J. Washington would have been drafted. He opted to come back and did what so few former five-star prospects do in a second year, get noticeably better, undeniably improve the draft stock. Again, shouts to GP. He had this. Love P.J. Washington this high, and it comes to fruition.
P.J. Washington headed to the Charlotte Hornets. 2 lottery picks left. Miami on the clock right now. What will they do next with the 13th overall pick? We're about to find out as the NBA draft coverage continues here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep.
Ours is a proud bloodline. We hail from the battlefields to the Badlands, from the mountains and the midtowns, from the islands to the highlands. and directly to those who understand that when you get behind the wheel, you're not just driving a Jeep Wrangler, you're joining a family.
It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
Everybody loves the surprise of a last-second equalizer. But nobody likes the surprise with their account balance. What? Stay up to date with account alerts. This is winning at banking. This is Wells Fargo.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, our NBA draft coverage continues, presented by Jeep. And with the 13th overall pick, the Miami Heat select Tyler Hero out of Kentucky. So that's back-to-back Kentucky players. P.J. Washington at 12 to the Charlotte Hornets. Tyler Hero at 13th overall to the Miami Heat. They got to replace Dwayne Wade. Tyler Hero becomes an option for them. GP, Tyler Hero, second player out of Kentucky, back-to-back.
I hope Tyler Hero doesn't have to replace Dwayne Wade. That's going to be tough. But I don't mind the pick. I would give it a B grade. Here's somebody who, again, this sounds so simple, but it's worth stressing in the modern NBA. Somebody who can dribble, pass, and shoot, and has good size for his position. He shot around 35% from three-point range, but the free throw percentage was off the charts, right around 93, 94%. And that, when you talk to NBA people, is a number that they pay attention to with anybody they're going to consider a shooter, because if you can shoot that percentage, 93.5 from the line, it suggests that you are a shooter and you're going to be a nice three-point shooter. But he's not just that. He can put it on the floor. He can get to the rim. He can make plays. I thought he should be a lottery pick. I'm not that surprised that he is.
Yeah, Goran Dragic, Dion Waiters, not much else there in the backcourt for Miami. Tyler Hero is going to have his opportunities here. And he was number one in free throw percentage in college basketball last season. You know, he's had an interesting journey himself. As we look up and down the draft board, we see these players get picked. So many of them have interesting stories. Tyler Hero was presumed to be set to play college basketball at Wisconsin, and then he kind of blew up in the rankings. Kentucky got involved, and it was done there. And going to Kentucky, I have no doubt about it, was the difference maker for him getting picked here. This is why John Calipari is so good at what he does, coaching and recruiting, because he can point to Tyler Hero and say, had he not come here, he would not have been anywhere close to the lottery. Instead, he gets picked. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. I think it's a solid pick here, and he's worthy of top 15 status, because if he hits that, his ceiling, Hakeem and GP, he can be a potential top 20 shooter in the NBA. He's got to work on it still, but I think the potential is there.
Avery, this is another kid you faced at Alabama, seeing him with the Kentucky Wildcats. What did you see in Tyler Hero, and can his game translate into the NBA playing for the Miami Heat?
His game translates. Great size. He's a scorer. He's not a guy that just can knock down a three-point shot. This guy can score at all of the different levels, you know, at the three, mid-range game, at the basket. He's really exceptional going left, on the left side of the floor, pulling up, 10, 14 feet on the left side. That's his go-to shot. But also, he's a great cutter. There were times we tried to deny him from getting the basketball, and he has a tremendous instinct in terms of back cutting to the basket, finishing at the rim, using the rim with his reverse layup. So he's a really crafty scorer, and I really like this pick for the Heat.
Reed Forgrave, let me bring you in now. You like this pick, Tyler Hero? Are Miami Heat fans excited about this?
Yeah, you should be. Look, the Miami Heat, I believe, are a team that's going to go backwards before it goes forwards. Tyler Hero is certainly going to have his opportunities to succeed with a Miami Heat team that, frankly, needs shooting. Tyler Hero, he is not just a shooter. He's a scorer. He can score in a multitude of different ways, but he very well may be the best shooter in this entire draft. And that makes the pick at number 11 by the Phoenix Suns of Cameron Johnson that much more confounding. Cam Johnson, I am a big fan of Cam Johnson. I think he's a high-character young man. He's 6'9" and can shoot 45% from three. But the fact that the Suns would pick him at number 11 when Tyler Hero was available, when plenty of other players were available, is unbelievable. The way that you win the NBA draft is not to get the best player in the draft. Only one team gets the best player in the draft. It is to overdraft your position, to do better than you think you did at whatever position you're doing. What the Suns did, they may have won with getting a good player at number 11, but they underdrafted. Cam Johnson, he could become a Kyle Korver, but you know what? Kyle Korver was the 51st pick in the draft.
One more lottery pick left. The Boston Celtics have it. Best players available here, GP, in terms of who the Celtics might go and find.
Yeah, there's two international players there. We haven't had one come off the board yet. Nasir Little was somebody who was projected as a top 5 pick coming out of high school. Obviously had a tough time finding playing time, playing behind upperclassmen at North Carolina. Still on the board. Brandon Clark, Norlander's favorite player, still on the board. Kevin Porter Jr. Also there. Romeo Langford still available. So there's still some good options.
Yeah, Boston's an interesting spot here because they have 3 first-round picks. Will they choose to keep this, or will they go and try, with whatever player gets picked here, try to move that player down the road, be it a few minutes from now or a few hours from now, or do they opt to keep it, though? We know they need scoring. This is a big roster overhaul. Boston's come under some scrutiny here because it got all these draft picks over the years, and now with Horford leaving, Kyrie Irving leaving, the window to win a championship, if it's not closing, but it's definitely in flux here. I would say Boston winning this draft might be imperative to them staying in that conversation in the Eastern Conference.
Reed, let me bring you in here. Boston's got to hit a home run in this draft, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're probably not going to, not at 14, not if you want to take some enormous risk on a player like Nasir Little or a player like Bol Bol, neither of whom I would see going to the Celtics with this pick. I actually just saw a report on my phone that the pick has been made, and it's Romeo Langford from Indiana. Now, Romeo Langford is a really interesting pick. He does have a high ceiling. He was considered a potential top 5 pick coming out of high school. He was one of the best Indiana high school players ever. The dude is a natural scorer. He can really get to the rim. He really struggled in his one-and-done season at Indiana. We don't know how much of that was because of that thumb injury that he suffered in a practice right before they played Duke in December. Clearly, it affected him somewhat. But I've gotten to know Romeo a little bit during this draft process. He's a very mellow guy. He told me his name, Romeo, just like explains the smooth character that he likes to be. Some people take that as a lack of motivation. You just see him using no emotion on the court. I know the way that Romeo sees that is that he's a guy who's really internally motivated, a guy who respects the refs, who respects the other coaches, and just doesn't make a show of it.
Boston has the 14th, the 20th, and the 22nd pick here in the first round, and the Boston Celtics pick is in the final lottery pick of the first round. And the Boston Celtics are, in fact, going with Romeo Langford out of Indiana. And, Matt, you know Romeo Langford very well, wrote about him multiple times this season on CBSSports.com. Do you like this pick for Boston now that we know Kyrie Irving's gone?
I don't like the pick. He can score and get to the rim. His efficiency numbers when he's driving to the rim are really impressive, guys. But I don't think that he is a surefire shooter at the NBA level. I think Boston needs more offense here. I'm really fascinated to see by what it's going to do later on in the first round. It's fine enough. I would have had Romeo Langford pegged deeper into the late teens, early 20s. I'm not a big fan of this pick. Maybe he winds up getting healthy. Maybe not having to play in Indiana. Let's not forget, like, he adapted well at GP. But when you had literally hundreds of people after every single high school game lining up to get your autograph, he handled it well. And then playing, for the hometown team, the Indiana Hoosiers, maybe going to a Boston or going elsewhere in the NBA will be better for him. But ultimately, I'm just okay on this.
I'm fine with the pick. There are only 2 players I had ahead of him at this point still available, Nasir Little and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So Romeo Langford is right in that range for me. Seems perfectly reasonable. And what you're hoping, if you're Boston, is that the reason he shot 27% from three-point range in his 1 year of college isn't because he's a terrible shooter, but because he had an injured shooting hand. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I know it's true that he had an injured shooting hand. I don't know if that's why he shot in the 20s from beyond the arc.
Sure.
But if you're Boston, you hope that it is, and that he shows that he can make shots from the perimeter, because he's already shown he can get to the rim as long as there is space for him that is created. So this is a guy you're getting, incredibly decorated high school prospect, projected top 10 pick coming out of high school, and now you get him deep into this draft, way deeper than people would have thought he was going to go, say, 8 months ago. There's real value in that, and if you're trying to make the connection, Brad Stevens, former Butler coach, drafted an Indiana Hoosier.
Avery, if you're a Boston Celtics fan right now, is this a kid, Romeo Langford, comes in and makes an instant impact, or are we expecting perhaps a couple years for his development?
I think this is a couple of years for his development. I'm a little surprised by this pick. Happy for the kid, but there are several other guys on the board, even Keldon Johnson from Kentucky. I just think, with this pick, obviously Danny has done a terrific job with the Celtics. They have a lot of question marks, especially with Kyrie Irving's situation. But I'm very surprised with this pick. This kid on the AAU circuit with the games at Indiana was a pretty good pick and roll player. I liked him in pick and rolls, when he was on the ball, splitting double teams, getting in the paint, causing havoc. Obviously his injury really minimized a lot of his success. But I'm a little surprised by this pick. I thought if he were to go in the first round, it would be somewhere near the end of the first round.
All right, so everybody's surprised here with Romeo Langford going 14th overall, the Boston Celtics. You agree, though, with Avery, this is going to take a little bit of time for his development in the NBA? Based on what you saw, I mean, he's a freshman. I do think it'll take just a little bit of time here, and maybe he blossoms into something. But I got to see more out of the pick and roll. Definitely got to see more out from the perimeter there. But maybe a change of scenery would be good. It's no secret to those who cover college basketball and college basketball recruiting that Romeo's father was also certainly a factor and a figure, not unlike many other prospects, but maybe just him kind of getting out into his own might actually help his development.
Well, to Avery and Matt's point, the other reason this is going to take some time is because he's joining a team that's got Marcus Smart.
Yep.
That's got Jaylen Brown, that's got Jason Tatum, that's probably going to have Terry Rozier back, especially if they lose Kyrie Irving. If they lose both of them for some guard, it's just going to be hard to get on the court as a night. Probably, and I might be saying this every pick going forward, I don't mind it. It's probably not what I would have done.
Just real quick here, and you mentioned Jason Tatum. I mean, Jason Tatum's reputation coming out of college and what he could do from a shooting and scoring perspective, so much greater than Romeo Langford. Now, he's fighting an uphill battle.
They're very different players.
Yes, without a doubt. Yeah.
All right, the lottery picks are in. All 14 picks are in from the 2019 NBA Draft. When we continue, the 15th pick, the Detroit Pistons. What are they going to do 15th overall? Keep it locked here on CBS Sports HQ. NBA Draft coverage presented by Jeep.
It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
You may never see a hat trick in person, but you can see your recurring payments with Control Tower. This is winning at banking. This is Wells Fargo.
Call your mom, your dad, people in your life that got you here, because you just didn't get here alone. Fans, they expect you to lead this team to the playoffs and be a great player. That's why it's called a lottery pick. They think that you're going to be the next franchise player coming in. 1, be the best teammate for the other guys. 2, be the first guy in the gym, the last guy to leave. 3, be coachable. You can't be coming here with this ego and thinking that, hey, just because of what you did in college. A lot of NBA players don't respect what you've done at the college level. The money factor. Hire someone that you trust that can handle your day-to-day stuff. 2, I would say hire a chef, because your body is your investment.
All right, back here on CBS Sports HQ, our NBA draft coverage presented by Jeep. And the 15th overall pick made by the Detroit Pistons, our first international player, Sekou Doumbouya, who's an absolute beast, played last year in France. What do we know about Doumbouya?
Well, he projects as a two-way modern, two-way forward in the modern NBA. This is a guy who is more advanced defensively than he is offensively, but has already shown at the age of 18 that he can be a 6'9" shooter from beyond the arc, really improved on it over the past year. This is somebody I had projected as a top 10 pick. So if you were able to get him with the 15th pick, I think if you're Detroit, that's a good selection. He's somebody who was supposed to be gone off the board by now. I assume Detroit didn't think he would be available at this point that he is. You scoop him up and you hope he develops in the way that so many people think that he can.
Yeah, such a young prospect, one of the 3 or 4 youngest in this draft. It's the first time since 2013, guys, we have not had an international prospect go in the lottery. It makes me wonder, if this is such a weak draft, is it an even weaker international class? Might we have nearly as few or as few overall international picks in round 1 and round 2 as we've ever seen? Clearly, NBA general managers and talent scouts thought that the college talent coming in was better than Sekou here, although I think he's got a decent chance to succeed. I think you're right, though. I think that Detroit found itself in a situation that it did not think it was going to be in with him being there. The youth in play here is why they're going to bank on him. Hopefully he can grow into something really strong in the next 2 or 3 years.
Sekou Doumbouya. Reed Forgrave, 15th overall pick, the Detroit Pistons. What say you here?
That's a steal. Most people had him significantly higher on their boards, 12, 11, 10, 9. You've seen him go much higher in just about every mock draft that I've seen. The ceiling is very high for him. He didn't start playing basketball until he was 12 years old, but he's been playing against professionals in the French Pro League since he was 15, and I think that really helps. He's only 18 years old, as Matt mentioned, one of the youngest players in this draft. Look, there are shades of a Pascal Siakam in him, an NBA-level athlete, very long, can kind of get out and run, and he can really shoot the ball. So to get him at 15, I think if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, you got to be really, really happy right now.
Matt, I kind of want to take a moment here to kind of address the fact that Dwayne Casey just watched the Toronto Raptors win an NBA championship. He's asked to leave. His assistant wins the title. They make the playoffs. They lose to the Bucks. Mm-hmm. Really, when you draft a guy like Sekou Doumbouya, what's the long-term, I guess, their potential at this point? Are they always going to be perhaps an 8 seed? Are they a team that could break through like we talked earlier with the Phoenix Suns?
I mean, in the short term, you can't see it. With Doumbouya, you hope maybe, develops into a Pascal Siakam type, maybe a few years down the road. Dwayne Casey did a great job in Toronto, and for him to step into the situation in Detroit and, at least get him going in the right direction, I think is commendable overall. But this seems to be a solid pick, but it's the kind of pick that will not inspire the fan base because purely they just haven't seen the player. So when your fan base, for the most part, is focused in on college prospects and you take an international guy, and it's not even an international guy that goes in the lottery, let alone the top 5 or the top 10, it's going to take a while to need some convincing. But at this point, I think any sort of criticism thrown that way is illegitimate because, GP, we have long since reached the point where we have plenty of international prospects that are all-stars, and even short of that, serious starters in the NBA. There's no reason why he can't beat that as well.
Well, to be clear, 18-year-olds selected outside of the lottery are not going to help you if you are trying to go to the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's why more and more franchises are splitting up the coach-GM situation, because a coach would never make this pick because coaches are trying to win now. Like, by the time Doumbouya becomes a relevant player in that organization, it could be one coach from now, 2 coaches from now. This is not a play for the 2019-20 season. This is a play for the 2021-22 season. It will take him some time, but if he develops into what so many people seem to think is possible, you'll look back on this as a good night for that franchise.
Next pick is in, the 16th pick, the Orlando Magic taking Chuma Okeke out of Auburn. Of course, we know the story about Chuma, tore his ACL in the NCAA tournament. Auburn then playing for him in his honor. He came out, they rolled him out, and all of the motivation for Chuma Okeke, and now he finds himself as the 16th overall pick by the Orlando Magic. Avery, you faced this guy as the head coach at Alabama last season, Chuma Okeke. What do you think about him?
Well, first of all, I think there are a lot of disappointing teams drafting later in the first round. One, probably the San Antonio Spurs that was hoping that this kid would fall to him. Chuma is just a terrific player, very versatile. He was Auburn's best player on most nights. I know Jared Harper and Bryce Brown got a lot of credit, and those guys had phenomenal years. But Chuma was the most consistent player on their team. He's a guy that when they needed a bucket, they can post him up on either box, and he could score the basketball or get to the free throw line. Underrated three-point shooter. Made some big threes for him. But he's a kid that's going to fit in well with, I think, a rising Orlando Magic team, a team that could very well, depending on what happens in free agency, can take that next step and maybe advance to the semifinals in the playoffs next year in the Eastern Conference.
Chuma Okeke out of Auburn, going 16th overall to the Orlando Magic. Do you like this pick, or is this a stretch?
What are we doing here?
It feels like a stretch, or at least a reach. Yeah. I'll put it that way. If you would have told me Chuma Okeke like 4 minutes before he tore his ACL was going to be picked this highly, I'd have said, I could see that.
Sure.
But coming off an ACL surgery, I won't say it's horrible. I just say I didn't expect it.
I didn't remotely expect it. Listen, a good off-the-ball player, good athlete. Credit to Okeke for getting this done in his representation. This is incredible. I wouldn't have used a first-round pick on Okeke. He might develop into something special. Was a 71% shooter in catch-and-shoot situations last season. I mean, he can be effective, and maybe if he can get healthy. But off an ACL injury in March, I'm extremely surprised by this. I think this is more surprising than the Cam Johnson pick, to be honest. I just didn't think that Okeke would have any shot to be anywhere near this. But again, each franchise, each general manager places an emphasis on different kinds of things here. And clearly they see something long-term in Okeke. Credit to him, but this is at least 10 picks too early for me.
Speaking of the Cameron Johnson move, he went 11th overall. Here's Kobe White's reaction to Cam Johnson.
Cameron Johnson just went 11th. How do you react to that news?
He went what?
11th.
Cam
in
Johnson
the draft.
went 11th.
Yep, it's right on the screen right there.
Wow, bro. That's crazy. That's so love, bro. Because if y'all know Cam, you don't know how hard Cam worked. And, you know, it's a lot of people that doubt him. But, wow, bro, that's crazy, bro. Wow, that's so crazy. I'm so happy for him right now. Y'all don't understand how happy I am for Cam. Because he proved it night in, night out that he deserves to be, you know, in the conversation for a lottery pick, man. He shot the ball like anyone I've never seen before in my life or played with. So I'm so – wow, bro. I'm getting chills up here.
Wow. Wow is right. How about the reaction there from Kobe? I mean, that's fantastic.
First off, hilarious, genuine in the moment. Also guaranteed to be chopped up and made into a video clip at some point going forward if Cameron Johnson does not become what it is his draft spot suggests he should. His teammate going, wow, that's crazy, bro. If it turns out to be crazy, bro, you'll see that clip a million more times.
GP is so right. Good, bad, otherwise. Cam Johnson, what he does at the NBA level, it could be missing a game winner. It could be it's just going to be spliced with. But you know what? That's incredible. Kobe White, really one of the better humans in college basketball, came across this past season. And how genuine and awesome was that reaction? We've had a lot of really good, inspiring reactions from players tonight. That's the highlight of the draft so far.
Yeah.
You can't hide that kind of happiness and genuine emotion for a teammate, and he was obviously stunned there. Again, we don't quite have Nasir Little's reaction yet because he's waiting to be picked. I don't know if it would have been quite the same as Kobe White, but good on Cam and good on Kobe.
Yeah, and to be clear, the reaction, the happiness came. It started with shock.
Right.
Yeah. The first reaction was surprise, and then it was like, I'm happy for my boy. But the first reaction was, what? He went where?
Yeah, you already got me thinking already about cutting that clip up. I'm going to go, when he plays his first game, Cameron Johnson, talk to my producer, Rob Arciero or Scott Riley here, and I'll say, hey, I want a SOT, sound on tape, TV jargon, on cam setup to Cameron Johnson's first game, roll the highlight. That's what it's going to be. Right. I'm not kidding you. That's what we're going to do next season. We are playing that back, and if Cameron Johnson has a wow game, Kobe White was right. All right, the 17th overall pick made by the New Orleans Pelicans, and it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker out of Virginia Tech. Matt, Nickeil Alexander-Walker headed to the Pelicans.
I like it.
You like it?
I really like this pick a lot. Yeah, I would grade this along the lines of an A because I think that he is going to be a better pro than he was a college player, and he was a good college player. Projected as a pro coming out of high school, by the way, and sees the floor well, good passer, good defender, good length. I actually think he can play the 2 or the 3 at the NBA level. He needs to maybe put on a little bit of weight overall, but I think this is a great get. If in fact New Orleans is going to hang on to this, I think they should. I think he is I'll put it this way, the style that he plays, it pairs nicely alongside Zion Williamson's game. I think New Orleans did a good job here.
Very early in the season, I was at the Maui Invitational where basically every NBA franchise was represented because Duke was there with Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, and Cam Reddish. And so you end up in Hawaiian shirts bumping into NBA scouts basically everywhere you go.
You did have a good Hawaiian shirt. I remember that segment.
I had 3.
Yeah, you did.
It's unbelievable. And so I remember this very normal thing you do when you have a job like our job. You bump into these people. You say, hey, who have you seen either in a practice, in a game that you really liked? And Nickeil's name came up more than anybody else's because he had already shown these scouts the ability to play either guard position, to make a shot. Obviously, you play for Buzz Williams. You're going to be tough and defensive-minded. He checks a whole bunch of boxes. I, like Matt, would give this an A grade. I think this is a smart pick made by a smart franchise.
Avery, you like this pick by your hometown New Orleans Pelicans, getting Nickeil Alexander-Walker from Virginia Tech?
Yeah, this pick is an A+. Nikhil Alexander-Walker coached against him last year in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It was a great night for our team because Sexton flips in a George Gervin type of finger roll at the buzzer for us to win the game against Virginia Tech. But this kid is outstanding. And if you pair him with a guy like Zion Williamson or Lonzo Ball, guys who can create off the dribble, they need guys who they can penetrate and pitch to. And he can catch and shoot, but he also can put the ball on the floor. But I agree, he needs to improve his body. As much as we've been talking early in the show about Zion Williamson maybe watching his diet and losing some weight, this kid needs to gain a little bit of muscle, especially to go through a rigorous NBA season. But I give New Orleans an A+ for this pick.
Well, when you're the 17th overall pick, you can afford yourself a very fancy chef. I'm sure he's going to eat well, especially being down in New Orleans. You just can't be loading up on the sweets because they got plenty of them down there. Reed Forgrave, I want to bring you in here. Gary gave this pick an A. Avery Johnson gives it an A+. What grade would you pick? Would you give it?
What are you guys talking about? This is a D-. This is the worst. I'm just kidding. I love this pick. How can you not, right? This is a high-character young man who can really shoot it. You look at the Pelicans right now. David Griffin has been killing it the past couple months since he got hired there. Obviously, part of it is getting lucky on draft night. The ping pong balls went his way. But look at the defensive potential of this team. Lonzo Ball, excellent defender. Drew Holiday, all-NBA defender. Jackson Hayes, he has the potential to be a stud defender. Zion Williamson, hell of a defender. Where's the shooting going to come from on this team? Well, here's your answer. Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Guy has size. He certainly needs to add some muscle, but he can really, really shoot the ball. I love the pick.
Next pick for Indiana. The Indiana Pacers at 18 with Goga Bitadze, 6'11", 250 pounds, our second international player off the board. And that's not Georgia, like Athens, Georgia. That's Georgia, the country. 19-year-old, turns 20 on July 20th. He's got professional experience already, Matt. Goga.
Yeah, big, lumbering, promising. Got some dexterity to his game. Solid passer. Don't necessarily disagree with the pick here. I mean, but in choosing him, you are going against the grain in terms of there aren't a lot of players like him in the NBA. Doesn't set up as a surefire, guaranteed kind of starter. But they like the value. They like his youth overall. The Pacers are going to take a chance here. I happen to think there are a few better prospects on the board. But when you get to this point, it's all about it really is all about fit and roster evaluation. We wait to see if they wind up trading.
Who would you have taken in this spot?
At this spot, Brandon Clark. Of course. Brandon Clark is sitting there, and the Spurs are going to take him. This is going to be the absolute most perfect thing. Just
the
watch.
Steal of the draft, one of them.
It would be if that happened, yeah.
I will say that Brandon Clark is higher on my board. Nasir Little, who, by the way, projected top 2 pick this time a year ago, is still available. He was higher on my board. But I actually had in my latest mock draft for CBSSports.com the Pacers making this pick exactly. So I have to give it an A. Otherwise, I'd be contradicting myself.
Reed, how about Goga? You like this pick for the Pacers at 18, or should we have gone somewhere else?
No, I love this pick, but this means that someone's on their way out of Indiana. It might be Goga himself, or it might be Domas Sabonis, or it might be Miles Turner, but you can't have 3 big men getting minutes on an NBA team. Goga Bitadze is fascinating. Comparisons that you see thrown out there are Yusuf Nurkic, that he's just this big body who loves to bang down low, great rebounder, but he's a little bit more than that, or at least has the potential to become more than that. He's really expanded his jump shot. You can see him hitting shots all the way out to 20 feet. Some people think that he's got a little bit of Nikola Jokic in him.
I do agree with Reed that having Sabonis, Turner, and this draft pick all on the same roster doesn't make a lot of sense, but the Pacers have been in trade talks with many franchises, among them Memphis recently, in an attempt to get Mike Conley before the Utah deal was done. And they were reportedly at least considering putting Miles Turner in some of those deals. So this could be a precursor to maybe moving off of Miles Turner. If you're trying to figure out who they would move, Turner or Sabonis, I actually think it's Turner, not Sabonis.
Yeah, I agree on that completely. But again, things are going to start getting crazy in a hurry here because I think we're going to get a lot of trades. And for as unexpected as a couple of these picks have been, I think the 20s are going to bring some real surprises as well.
All right, the first 18 picks are in. 12 more to go in the first round. We're going to break them down coming up. NBA Draft on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep.
Ours is a proud bloodline. We hail from the battlefields to the Badlands, from the mountains and the midtowns, from the islands to the highlands, and directly to those who understand that when you get behind the wheel, you're not just driving a Jeep Wrangler, you're joining a family.
It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use. Use caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
What's easier than scoring on an open goal? Mobile deposit from Wells Fargo. This is winning at banking. This is Wells Fargo.
What do I say? Like, I'm so overwhelmed, humbled, and just honored and very thankful, that the Knicks took the chance with me, that they believed in me, and I'm so happy to be a Knick, and I can't wait to play in Madison Square Garden.
Did it mean for you to get that ovation right away from the fans? Because there have been some draft picks here in this town that don't get that ovation.
I watched, yeah. That was great. I mean, how would you feel if people were, screaming your name? You feel great. I really feel like I'm doing something good. All my hard work's paying off. So I know that, like Kareem said, you have nothing to prove, but you have everything to prove. This is a new start, so I'm ready to go.
And R.J. Barrett's going to stay right there in New York. Go from Brooklyn to Broadway, where MSG's at. And if he performs at MSG, he will be beloved by the New York Knicks fan base. All right, the next pick is in, and 3 of our last 5 picks have been international players. The San Antonio Spurs going with Luka Samanic, a 19-year-old out of Croatia, 6'11", 210 pounds. Matt, Luka Samanic out of Croatia. You like this pick for the Spurs?
I like it for the Spurs. My mock draft had the Spurs drafting him 10 spots lower at 29th, but they go here, and maybe a small reach, although a year ago he was projected to be in this sort of conversation around this point in the draft. Good length. It's San Antonio. They obviously love their international prospects there, and they're going to have a lot of confidence there. It's almost like a Patriots kind of situation there, where the grades on him and the reputation of this draft pick will be directly affected by the reputation of the franchise that's selecting him. So I like it.
A year ago, I went back and looked at the mock draft I did, projecting the 2019 draft a year in advance, and I had him in the lottery. And yet there was no intel over the past 12 months that suggested he was still in that range. Probably a guy that would go in the 20s or 30s. But this high was a little bit surprising, at least to me. Again, it's not what I would have done, but at this point, certain franchises deserve the benefit of the doubt. And San Antonio is clearly one of those franchises. You give it a C based on The fact that you don't want to be the guy giving San Antonio an F when you look up in 3 years and this young man's starring in the NBA Finals, but a little higher than I would have anticipated. I did not have him going in the first round at all.
What does it say about the Spurs? They identify this international talent. They're able to mold it into good NBA players.
Well, they've got a fantastic scouting department when it comes to this, because when you're dealing with trying to identify international players who will translate and be successes at the NBA level, it's a tough alchemy. It's a tough science there, and few franchises seem to have, if not mastered it, really excelled at it the way San Antonio has. So he will be given the benefit of the doubt. Again, good length as well. This is a franchise that still, despite the fact that it's taken some hits here and lost Kawhi Leonard and all that, and trying to press on and still be a factor in the Western Conference. I'm not sure if Luka will be that. I don't think he'll be as good as the Luka from a year ago. But still, there aren't a lot of prospects in this draft like him.
Reed, let me come to you now here. Luka Samanic, where do you have him ranked in terms of what he'll be able to do in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's 6'11", and he can really shoot it. Think like a Nikola Mirotic type player. And I think what Gary was referring to earlier, to go a little bit deeper into that, the Spurs have and have had for the past quarter century the best scouting department in the NBA. And I can remember several years ago being out literally in the middle of nowhere in a gym in Eastern Washington, an hour outside Spokane at Eastern Washington University. I'm out there to write a story about Tyler Harvey. And who sits next to me but the assistant GM of the San Antonio Spurs, Sean Marks, who's now the GM of the Nets. This team has always done things right, and they're always able to find diamonds in the rough. Now, Luka Samanic is a guy that people have known about for a while, but clearly the Spurs are higher on him than most. He was a guy who was mocked generally in the late 20s, but I think you just have to assume that when the Spurs pick a guy, he's going to be good because they're the Spurs. They know how to scout, and they know how to develop.
All right, so we still got some guys, plenty of guys available here for the Boston Celtics who are on the clock right now. If you're the Boston Celtics right now, and Reed, I'll come back to you, what are you doing with the 20th pick if you're the Boston Celtics?
You've got a million choices, right? There are some big names who are out there. Brandon Clark is the most interesting one. Like, now that it sounds like Al Horford is on his way out of town, Brandon Clark is an absolute pogo stick. I get that there are questions about his length and whether he can really play the 5 at the NBA level. Well, I tell you what, when I saw him in college playing against high-level collegiate competition, the dude was always the best athlete on the floor. Nasir Little is also a fascinating case. The fact that he has dropped so much is surprising. I don't like the fit there. Next to Jaylen Brown, next to Jason Tatum, that just doesn't work for me. So I'm guessing Nasir Little falls a little bit further. And then there's the other point that they could just take a home run swing and say, you know what? Ball a year ago was considered a top 5 pick. Here he is sitting around at 20. Why not go for the upside, knowing that there's not that great of a chance for him to hit the upside? But if they hit in a major way.
All right, so we're seeing a report right now in terms of what's going to happen here at the 20th overall pick. Boston's going to select Matisse Thybulle at 20 and then trade him to the Sixers. You like this move here?
Okay, couple things. Yes, very much yes.
Yeah.
Boston's doing what I expected. I didn't think there was any chance that it was going to take all 3 players and keep all. I thought moving this pick was an inevitability. And Thybulle, I know GP's got some doubts. To me, Thybulle, second best defender in the draft, only behind DeAndre Hunter. I know he played in a zone under Mike Hopkins at Washington. He was considered a high-end kind of player when he entered into college. I think that he can be one of the 25 best defenders in the NBA by the end of his rookie season. High IQ, a lot of really good things surrounding his reputation, quick learner, and I think his build, offensively the shot needs some work, but I just think that you plug him in, you play him for Philly, if you can get him in and say play 15 to 17 minutes in the rotation, big time win. This is an easy A for me. I think this is a fantastic value, and I love what Philadelphia has done here, going to Boston, getting the trade, and I think it can actually pay off well for the Celtics.
So the report is that the Celtics are going to get, in exchange for this, the 24th pick and the 33rd pick. So they're basically trading 1 pick for 2. So they got more picks now than they had 5 minutes ago. From Philadelphia's perspective, I'll be honest, I don't get it. We just watched the Sixers get eliminated in the playoffs, and what does everybody say about them? Need to add shooting. So then they trade up to add a non-shooter because Thybulle did not shoot a good percentage from beyond the arc, 30.5 100%. He is a terrific athlete. I do think he can be great on the defensive end of the court, even though we got to see it in a man-to-man setting as opposed to the zone. But if you're Philadelphia and you're building around what you're building around, and everybody thinks you need to add shooting to take the next step, I'm not sure why you trade up to add a non-shooter. I would give this a D.
All right. He led the entire country in steals, which I know, Avery, you can appreciate. Matisse Thybulle headed to the 76ers. Your thoughts?
Well, the 76ers definitely aren't spacing the floor. They're shrinking the floor with this pick, and maybe they know something that we don't know. But kids like this, they're 2 or 3 years away from having a major impact because they have to develop an outside game. So this will be a kid that you'll see in the Las Vegas Summer League for probably 3 straight summers trying to develop his game, especially from the outside to have an impact for the Sixers because, you know, the Sixers they're not a big pick and roll team. Just like the Golden State Warriors, they're not a big pick and roll team. So if you're not a pick and roll team, you definitely got to have some movement, but you're moving right back into the defense. So a little bit of a surprise, but Elton Brand, give him credit. He's had a heck of a run as a GM. Maybe they're thinking if they lose Jimmy Butler in free agency, they got to have somebody that can at least defend some perimeter guys. So he can't replace Jimmy Butler, especially from an offensive standpoint, but maybe from a defensive standpoint, they're thinking this is an insurance policy to help us defend the perimeter in case Jimmy Butler leaves via free agency.
The 21st pick has also been traded, according to an ESPN report. So Oklahoma City has traded out of the 21 spot. Memphis climbs back in the first round here. GP, Memphis with the 21st pick. What might they do here at 21, you think?
Well, when you move from 23 to 21, you are moving for a very specific purpose. It's to draft somebody that you value, who you feel like is available now, who will not be available at 23, 2 spots later. That player is going to be Brandon Clark from Gonzaga, Matt Norlander's a favorite player. He is somebody who was incredibly efficient in this past season at Gonzaga. Had the second best player efficiency rating in the country behind only Zion Williamson. He is shorter than most people who play his position. He's got shorter arms than most people play his position. Those are the concerns and why he's available in the 20s. But if you're the Grizzlies and you can get a guy, a lot of people had projected in the lottery this deep, and put him next to Jaren Jackson Jr., which I think fits perfectly. I like it. I like it a lot. I would give it an A.
You called the Grizzlies. You're like, hey, go get Brandon Clark. That's my guy.
One of the most athletic teams in the NBA now. Yeah. Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, Brandon Clark amongst a cast of others here. You watch Brandon Clark play, and it is impossible not to see how he is not an awesome player, okay? I understand some bogus concerns about length or whatever. One of the most impressive shot blockers, rebounders, oh, by the way, excels at shooting from 8 to 14 feet. I know three-point range, layups, get that, close out, whatever. The mid-range game is dying. It's never going to fully die. There was always use there because that's where the most space can be found in the NBA game. Memphis getting Brandon Clark, I think, is a great culture fit, a great roster fit, and to me, he was drafted at least 4 or 5 spots, at least 4 or 5